Welcome to SpillHood, your spot for the wildest updates and the latest street-level news. And trust me, this one is shaking the whole game. YNW Melly's entire case just spun in a whole new direction because a close associate finally leaked that late-night footage that the street's been whispering about. What came out ain't some small rumor. The internet is buzzing, and this new clip is already making people rethink everything we thought happened that night. Let's break down this bombshell that just landed. These leaked videos popped up in November 2025, showing Jacoby Mills, a homie who was actually present that night. And they're giving the most detailed inside look we've ever had about what really went down when Sack Chaser and Juvie lost their lives. But don't get it twisted. This ain't shaky phone footage or anything showing the actual moment.
Why you got Sack and Juvie tatted on you? They not dead. I wouldn't tat nobody on me that's not dead. 2 days after that, these boys.
Just, which one were you close with?
Both of them. Every last one of them.
This is straight up raw interrogation room video, and the energy in that room has everybody online losing it. What makes this so intense is the fact that Mills wasn't just telling stories. He was really there, riding in that red car behind the Jeep during the moment everything shifted. This ain't secondhand chatter or neighborhood talk. This is someone from the circle, someone who knew every person involved, giving a first-hand breakdown from the inside. But to really see why this leaked footage just blew social media wide open, we gotta rewind and break down the roots of a case that's had the whole scene locked in for 6 straight years. Everything traces back to October 26, 2018, when 2 rising artists, Anthony YNW Sack Chaser Williams and Christopher YNW Juvie Thomas Jr., were found in a Jeep Cherokee outside Memorial Hospital in Miramar. At the time, YNW Melly, real name Jamel Demons, wasn't just another figure in the background. He was tight with them, part of the same YNW crew, all coming up together in Florida's rap scene and building something major from scratch. These weren't rivals, these were brothers who were supposed to ride for each other no matter what. The first story the public heard was that Cortland, YNW Bortland Henry, rushed the two to the hospital after claiming they were caught in a random drive-by. On the surface, it looked like another heartbreaking situation where young men got swept into unexpected street danger. But now, with this fresh footage dropping, the whole timeline is getting questioned with lightning speed. This sounded like one of those tragic stories we hear way too often. But once investigators started peeling the layers back, the whole version of events crumbled fast, like a weak structure in a storm.
I already know. My dead and gone. I already know what y'all here for.
Well, it just, which one were you close with?
Both of them. Every last one of them.
Did you grow up with them?
Every last one of them.
The forensics came in, and what they showed did not match the original claim one bit. Instead of blasts coming from outside the Jeep, like what you'd expect in a supposed drive-by, the autopsy revealed both victims were hit from inside the vehicle. And the angles of those blasts lined up with the very seat Melly was believed to be sitting in. That's when things took a serious turn, because now the story wasn't adding up at all. Here's where it gets even more intense. The prosecution believes that around 1 a.m. on October 26, 2018, 8 dudes pulled up to New Era Recording Studio in Fort Lauderdale to put in work. Nothing strange. Studios always stay alive with artists chasing that next big moment. But according to the leaked footage, the energy that night was off from the start. Mills explains that everyone was acting different, not like their usual vibe. Sack Chaser was reportedly snapping on people, even tapping folks for dozing off, creating a tense atmosphere. The whole session felt hostile, and barely any progress was being made. By 3:19 a.m., the crew decided to shut everything down and head out, with the tension still hanging heavy in the air. Here's where the timeline turns serious, because every move from this point forward matters. The crew split into 2 separate rides. 4 hopped into a red Mitsubishi SUV. Trevion Glass, Dontavius Withers, Jacoby Mills, and Adrian Davis. The other 4 slid into a gray Jeep Cherokee with Cortland Henry behind the wheel, Anthony Williams up front, Christopher Thomas in the back, and Jamel YNW Melly Demons taking the rear driver's side seat. Both vehicles were seen on surveillance rolling the same route at first. I-95 south to 595, then across to I-75 south, and finally toward Miramar Parkway. At first glance, it looked like nothing but 2 cars full of exhausted artists heading home after a long studio shift. But then things took a disturbing turn. At 184th Avenue, the red Mitsubishi kept moving south, and cameras caught it entering the Sunset Lakes gated community at 3:50 a.m., the spot where a lot of the crew stayed. But the gray Jeep, it never appeared on those same cameras. Instead, later phone data revealed the Jeep turned north, and that's where the situation shifts from strange to straight up eerie. The Jeep reportedly went north on 184th, then west on Pines Boulevard, until it reached the edge of the Everglades. A dark, isolated stretch where nobody would be around to see anything happening. After that, the vehicle headed south on US 27 and made a left onto Pembroke Road, a street that ends at a huge waste facility.
Put a gun on me.
Saying Kobe pulled a gun on her?
Yep, 5:30 that morning. She called out of work and she called. Wait, stop.
And you really
stop.
can't even tell Courtney. I know what.
Yeah, don't say it. Don't say it.
That's what she told Mariah too, because that's what Mariah told me. Jamie just called me at 8 and told me.
Melly called her at like 5:30 that morning.
By this point, it's clear the two cars weren't just taking different routes. Something much heavier was playing out in that gray Jeep that night. According to the cell data, this isolated spot was where everything allegedly went down at 4:02 a.m. But here's where the whole situation turns unbelievable. When investigators searched the entire stretch of Miramar Parkway, the place that was supposed to be the scene of that so-called drive-by, they found nothing. No shells, no broken glass, no damage to nearby property, no tire marks. Absolutely zero signs that a moving car had been attacked that night. It was clean, like nothing ever happened there. Meanwhile, the medical examiner revealed something even more chilling. By the time that drive-by was supposedly happening at 4:02 a.m., both victims were already gone. And the extra bullet damage that looked like it came from the outside, that was after they had already lost their lives, meaning those blasts were added later to make it look like an outside hit. Think about that for a second. The prosecution claims Melly and Bortland didn't just lose control during an argument. They say the two pulled off a whole cover story, riding around with their friends' bodies and firing from outside the Jeep to fake a random hit. That's extremely calculated behavior, the kind that sounds more like a planned setup than a split-second mistake. But the state didn't stop there. They pulled out Instagram messages where someone asked Melly about what happened and he allegedly replied, "I did that." Shh. They also brought up claims that Melly had ties to the G-Shine crew, and that just 2 days before everything went down, he was reportedly learning the loyalty oath connected to that group. This combination of digital evidence, timing, and alleged affiliations pushed the case into a whole different zone, one that shocked everyone watching. The first time this case went to trial, things fell apart in July 2023 when the jury couldn't come together on a final decision, forcing a mistrial. Since then, the second trial has been hit with delay after delay, and now the new date is set for January 2027. Melly has been sitting behind bars for more than 6 years without a final ruling, while his co-defendant Bortland took a plea deal in October 2025 for accessory charges tied to the situation. And this is exactly why these newly leaked interrogation tapes are hitting the internet like a thunderbolt. Jacoby Mills, also known by a couple of nicknames including Cortez Tezzy, is said to be related to Bortland and was one of the people inside that red SUV on the night everything unfolded. That puts him in a spot where he wasn't inside the Jeep during the moment things turned badly, but he was close enough to understand the energy and the conversations happening around the crew. The wild part, these recordings were made way back in January 2019, just months after the incident and way before most of the deeper details ever saw the light of day. That means Mills was talking about things long before the public had any clue, which gives his statements a different level of weight. What's making people talk even louder is the timing of the leak, suddenly dropping in November 2025, right as the retrial is being prepped. It sparks a whole new wave of questions. Was this leak to sway how people see the case? Does it connect to the civil lawsuit still in motion? Or did this footage simply come up during discovery and hit the internet at the exact moment it could make the biggest impact? Across social media, the reaction to these leaks has been straight chaos, with everyone jumping in. From major voices like DJ Academics to everyday users on every platform, the whole scene is split right down the middle. Some folks are calling this the piece of evidence that finally locks Melly in, while others are labeling Mills as someone breaking the street code for his own protection.
The remix of Melly song, listen to that bitch. What he said, bust a nigga head, some.
The debate is heating up non-stop, but here's the twist that makes everything even harder to untangle. Mills keeps saying he's not informing on anyone during the interrogation. He claims he's only trying to help his friends, but the details he drops are so sharp and so damaging that it's tough to understand how any of it could possibly help the defense. If anything, it sounds like the kind of info the prosecutors dream about. And once you hear what he actually said, it gets even more intense. This footage is being called one of the most jaw-dropping confessions hip-hop has ever seen. And trust me, things are about to turn serious because the next part of this interrogation is wild. The moment Mills starts talking, it's like he's laying out a full blueprint of what allegedly happened that entire night, piece by piece. Some of the details are so precise and so vivid that they send a chill down your spine. because it feels like you're watching the events unfold in real time. Mills says the whole energy felt off the moment they pulled up to New Era recording studio around midnight. Instead of that usual grind mode focus, everybody was dragging, barely keeping their eyes open. And anyone who's ever been around studio life knows that time ain't cheap. You don't waste late night hours unless something heavy is on people's minds. That's when Mills' story takes a sharp turn. He describes Sack Chaser as acting while controlling, checking people for nodding off, and even tapping folks to wake them up. In street circles, when someone starts flexing like that in front of the whole crew, it usually means tension is already bubbling underneath, and whatever comes next won't be small. Mills even says Sack Chaser had a history of getting into intense situations, which lines up with talk from others who claimed the group had been dealing with internal tension over money and leadership. And this is where the long-standing rumor finally comes back into the light. The money issues that people in the streets have whispered about for years. According to what's been floating around in the leaked audio, there were heated disagreements over a record deal that was reportedly worth serious money. Some say Sack Chaser believed he held CEO status in the YNW crew and should get half of anything Melly earned.
If we done jumped in front of him, it's already too late. We can't try to pull over and get back behind.
Mills lays out details that are key to understanding how the whole night played out. He confirms the seating inside the Jeep. Bortland in the driver's seat, Sack Chaser up front with him, Melly sitting right behind Bortland, and Juvie positioned behind Sack Chaser. Mills himself was in the red SUV, with Tay driving, Fetty in the passenger seat, and Adrian Davis in the back. And then he shares something that hits hard every time you hear it. Mills says he tried to get into the Jeep at first, but something stopped him, like a strong instinct telling him not to get in. Whether you see it as intuition or something deeper, that moment suggests Mills felt the energy was off, and that being in that Jeep was not the move that night. He also says Juvie grabbed weapons from the studio before leaving, and Melly had a brown satchel that supposedly held a firearm. That lines up with what prosecutors believe, that the situation may have been planned and not just a sudden argument that spiraled out of control. Then things get even more shocking. Mills describes how the group reached the house in Sunset Lakes and were stuck outside for about 30 minutes because nobody had keys. Most of the guys eventually made it inside and knocked out from exhaustion, but Mills stayed awake. And at around 4 a.m., he got a phone call that shook him to his core. This is where the situation moves into serious territory, because once threats start reaching family members, it's clear the drama has gone way past music or crew disagreements. Mills says his phone started blowing up with missed calls, not just from Melly, but even 17 calls to Drew, the group's videographer. When someone hits your line that many times in the middle of the night, you already know something major has gone down. But then we reach the part of Mills' testimony that hits the hardest. He claims Melly FaceTimed him after everything happened. And according to Mills, Melly was acting. He says Melly was forcing emotional reactions, pretending to cry, but without a single tear showing. It looked like a performance rather than real heartbreak over what happened to his friends. In street circles, being able to switch your emotions on command after a violent situation is a skill people associate with someone who knows how to hide their intentions. And if Mills' version is true, that means Melly could have lost two close friends and then instantly switched into cover story mode, which paints a picture of someone moving with cold precision.
Yell downstairs, I say, 80, see a Sack and Melly in the room. He already sleep in the Sack room. He had ran to the stairway because he heard me talking crazy, like, man, what the f going on? He looking lost, like, what's going on, bro? I say, man, go see a Sack in his room.
Mills doesn't stop there. He even recalls what Melly looked like when he later saw him at Fredo Bang's house. He says Melly had changed into a tank top and gym shorts, which could suggest he switched outfits for reasons tied to removing evidence or distancing himself from whatever happened earlier. The part about Melly switching clothes isn't just Mills talking. Other witnesses in the trial back that up, which already adds weight to his story. But things get even more unbelievable after that. Mills says that the next morning, the crew went out into the nearby woods searching for something and ended up finding a blood-covered .40 caliber weapon. Mills even claims he held the weapon himself before a manager quickly took it away from him. He also says they were hunting for a second weapon, something he described as a tech, most likely a Tech 9, but that one was never recovered. This is a major detail because the prosecution has always insisted they never found the firearm used in the killings, no matter how many searches they ran. Mills' version of events suggests the weapons were found, just not by the police, and were handled by the crew before disappearing for good. Through everything he shares, Mills makes one thing clear. He does not believe Bortland was involved in any violent act that night. He describes him as someone who doesn't live that lifestyle and wouldn't be capable of carrying out something that extreme. That actually lines up with why Bortland walked away with an accessory plea instead of facing the more serious charges everyone expected. But Mills doesn't just recap what he saw. He starts giving his own take on why everything unfolded the way it did, and that's when the interview turns explosive. He hints that the whole situation feels like a setup and even compares it to other high-profile cases the streets still talk about today, like the one involving King Von.
DeAndre told somebody,
Everybody get
everything Melly get,
Melly.
I get half.
Me do.
You hear that? He said he do. He just said Juvie and DeAndre, Sack Chaser, are YNW, and Sack Chaser is supposed to get half of everything.
Mills goes even further and starts asking how NBA YoungBoy supposedly knew details about the situation, pointing to old social media posts and talk of a remix track that people online claimed had insider references. But here's where we gotta slow it down for a second. After deep digging, nobody has found proof that this remix ever existed, and no investigators have connected YoungBoy to anything involving this case. Still, the fact that Mills even mentioned YoungBoy is wild because there were long-standing reports of tension between their circles. In certain environments, beefs like that can grow fast and lead to serious fallout, even if the people involved weren't directly part of the incident. Whether YoungBoy had any real knowledge or not, just bringing his name into the mix shows how tangled hip-hop politics can get. It's a reminder of how fast rumors, alliances, and rivalries can turn into something way bigger than intended. What really makes Mills' statements hard to ignore is that he mentioned a bunch of details way back in 2019, things that weren't public yet. And years later, they ended up proving true. For example, Mills said Juvie's thumb had been hit, which wasn't confirmed until 2025 when attorney John Phillips released the autopsy photos. He also described the exact spot where Melly got picked up by Fredo Bang. And that lines up with phone data that didn't come out until the trial years later. Those early details matching up with later evidence give Mills' words a level of credibility that's hard to brush off. All through the interrogation, Mills keeps saying he isn't informing on anyone. He claims he's only speaking up because he wants to protect his friends. At one point, he even admits he's scared his family could be hurt because he talked to investigators, which shows how serious the pressure around this situation really was. Once these leaks hit the internet, the reaction went completely wild. Hip-hop commentators like DJ Academic started breaking down every frame of the footage, while fans on Reddit, Twitter, and every other platform argued nonstop about whether Mills is a trustworthy witness or someone trying to save himself by pointing fingers. The debate hasn't slowed for a second. What makes this even deeper is how the whole situation ties into the bigger conversation about loyalty in both hip-hop and the streets. There's always been an unwritten rule that you don't cooperate with law enforcement under any circumstances. But when two people lose their lives and another close friend is suspected, that so-called code gets tested in ways most people don't ever want to face. Those lines between loyalty and self-preservation can switch up real fast when the danger becomes real. This whole situation goes way beyond one incident. It's about loyalty, money, power, and the dangerous fallout when all those forces crash into each other. And now we've reached the final stretch of this wild story, where the impact from these leaked tapes is shaking the entire culture. The reaction isn't small. It's spreading through hip-hop like a spark hitting dry grass. We're no longer just looking at a single case. This footage is pushing people to rethink everything from loyalty codes to the meaning of snitching, to how street politics bleed into the music world. Mills' revelations are hitting every level of the game, the courts, the industry, the crews, and even the unwritten rules that guide street culture. Let's start with the legal side, because that's where things get intense. These leaks are dropping right when Melly's team is preparing for trial, and the timing is definitely raising eyebrows. Some legal analysts are saying the tapes might not even make it into the courtroom because of authentication issues and hearsay rules. But the real problem? Millions of people have already seen them. These leaks didn't just shake the streets, they shook the entire justice process. Here's where things get real interesting from a strategy angle, because a lot of people online are starting to wonder if these leaks have something to do with the civil wrongful past lawsuit still in motion. The families of the victims are pushing for financial compensation, and the rules in civil court are completely different. In criminal court, evidence has to pass strict tests, but in civil court, the standards are way more relaxed, and hearsay can slide in a lot easier. That lower burden of proof changes everything. The fact that Fredo Bang got pulled into civil deposition shows just how wide this situation is spreading. Fredo wasn't directly tied to what happened that night, but because Mills said Melly showed up at his place afterward, now he's being questioned too. Even 50 Cent reacted to the situation, proving how much this case has gripped the entire culture, from fans to major names. But now we gotta shift to the street politics, because that's where things get tangled.
Oh, she just took your clothes?
I mean, no, she got everybody clothes. Everybody clothes that was in there.
Why? My mind is telling me there's some, hiding of evidence type shit going.
The leaked audio of Sack Chaser's family talking the day after the tragedy reveals serious behind-the-scenes tension inside the YNW crew. They speak about money issues, disagreements, and claims that Sack Chaser was trying to stop Melly from signing what they called a devil's deal, rejecting the idea that Melly should commit to a contract he didn't trust. When you're dealing with record contracts worth serious money, hundreds of thousands on the table, and one person believes they deserve half while the other disagrees, that kind of tension can push situations into dangerous territory fast. That type of disagreement can shift the whole energy of a crew. The family audio also brings up suspicions about Melly's mother and what happened in the hours after everything unfolded. They mention a storage unit being rented early the next morning to move belongings and possibly hide items connected to the situation. That's a heavy allegation, and the fact that Melly's mom reportedly called out of work at 5:30 a.m. the same morning suggests she may have sensed something serious had happened before anything hit the news later on. Now, the NBA YoungBoy angle that Mills mentioned is especially interesting because it shows how deep these street dynamics run. Mills wondered how YoungBoy seemed to know details about the situation, pointing to social media posts and claims about a remix that supposedly hinted at insider info. Even though there's no confirmed evidence that such a remix ever existed, there were known disagreements between the two camps before all this happened. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, the snitching allegations against Mills. Throughout the interrogation, Mills repeatedly denies being a snitch, insisting he's just trying to help his friends. But the hip-hop community's reaction has been brutal. Social media is full of people calling him out for cooperating with law enforcement. Regardless of his motivations, this touches on one of the fundamental tensions in hip-hop culture. What do you do when the no-snitching code conflicts with seeking justice for eliminated friends? Mills was in an impossible situation if he stayed silent. The shocking crimes potentially get away with pass if he talks to police. He gets labeled a snitch and becomes a target himself. The fact that Mills expressed genuine fear that his family might be passed for cooperating shows just how serious these dynamics can be in the streets. Snitching isn't just about legal consequences, it's about survival from a broader cultural perspective. This case is highlighting some uncomfortable truths about the music industry and street culture. The financial disputes that allegedly led to these shocking crimes reflect larger issues about how money and success can destroy friendships. And families in hip-hop when everyone's hungry and suddenly there's a big check on the table. These are the moments when loyalty, trust, and pressure collide, and everybody's true intentions get exposed. Some critics argue that cases like this show how young black artists get unfair levels of attention from law enforcement, while others believe the forensic evidence in this situation speaks loudly on its own. And then there's the fact that Melly has been locked up for more than 6 years with no final verdict, something that raises major questions about due process. Supporters of the prosecution, on the other hand, say the charges are so serious that the long delays are unavoidable. Looking ahead to the retrial in January 2027, it's clear the leaked footage has completely shifted the energy around this case. Florida is still pushing for the harshest penalty available, and many legal experts say there's almost no chance Melly gets offered a deal that doesn't include spending life behind bars. With Bortland already taking a plea and potentially ready to testify, plus Mills' interviews circulating everywhere, Melly's legal team is facing pressure from every direction. But beyond all the courtroom talk, these leaks remind everyone about the real people involved and the lives that were changed forever. Mills' description of Juvie as someone who wanted to step away from the rap scene, along with the complicated dynamics inside the group, paints a picture of young men who didn't expect things to end the way they did. It hints at trust being broken in the worst way possible. These questions go way beyond this single situation, and as the retrial gets closer, one thing is crystal clear. These leaked tapes guaranteed that the YNW Melly case will go down as one of the most closely followed legal battles in hip-hop history. The truth behind what happened on October 26, 2018 might be far more layered than anyone first understood. But Mills' detailed breakdown gave the world the closest look we've ever had from someone right next to the circle. Whether this footage ends up hurting Melly's case, adding new twists, or getting tossed aside in court, we still don't know. But what is clear is how deeply this situation exposed real tensions inside hip-hop. Questions about loyalty, money, street ethics, and justice that stretch way past one person's future. The streets are tuned in, the courts are gearing up, and the entire culture is still trying to wrap its head around everything these leaks reveal, no matter how the trial ends. The shockwaves from this situation are going to echo long after the final ruling is announced. If you rocked with this breakdown, make sure you like, drop a comment, share this video, and subscribe to SpillHood so you never miss another deep dive. And I'll catch you in the next one.